I want you to imagine something with me right now. It's late at night. The house is quiet. You're lying in bed, and your mind is doing that thing it always does. Replaying conversations, worrying about tomorrow, rehearsing problems that haven't even happened yet. Your body feels tired, but your mind won't stop, and somewhere deep inside you feel this quiet desperation. This longing for something to change, for your health to improve, for your circumstances to shift, for your life to finally feel different. What if I told you that in those final moments before sleep, you hold a power so profound, so absolute, that it can literally reorganize the cells of your body? What if I told you that 3 simple words, spoken with understanding and feeling in that drowsy state between waking and sleeping, can activate a healing force within you that modern science is only beginning to understand? I'm not speaking metaphorically. I'm not offering you pleasant philosophy or positive thinking tricks. I'm sharing with you a law as real and as dependable as the law of gravity. For over 40 years, I have witnessed this principle transform lives. I have seen people walk away from diagnoses that terrified them. I have watched chronic conditions dissolve. I have received thousands upon thousands of letters from people around the world who discovered what I'm about to share with you, applied it with sincerity, and experienced what can only be called miracles. But here's what most people don't understand. They think their conscious mind is running the show. They think willpower, effort, and struggle are the keys to transformation. They exhaust themselves trying to force change during the day, wrestling with their thoughts, battling their circumstances, pushing against reality with all their might, and then they collapse into bed, defeated and discouraged. They have no idea that the moment they've been waiting for, the moment when real power becomes available to them, is that exact moment when they stop trying. When the conscious mind finally releases its grip, when you enter that beautiful, receptive twilight state just before sleep, your subconscious mind doesn't sleep. It never sleeps. While your conscious mind rests, your subconscious mind is working. It's directing every function of your body. It's healing cuts you forgot you had. It's fighting infections you don't even know about. It's rebuilding tissue. It's creating new cells. Right now, as you listen to these words, your subconscious is performing thousands of complex operations without any input from your conscious thinking mind. And here's the extraordinary thing, the thing that changes everything once you truly understand it. Your subconscious mind accepts whatever you impress upon it with feeling and conviction. It doesn't argue. It doesn't question. It doesn't distinguish between what you call real and what you call imaginary. It simply accepts and acts upon the thoughts you feed it, especially in that receptive state before sleep. Think of your subconscious mind as the soil in which you plant seeds. You don't need to understand all the complex biological processes happening beneath the surface. You don't need to see the intricate network of roots forming in the darkness. All you need to do is plant the right seed, provide the right conditions, and trust the intelligence of nature to do the rest. The same principle applies to your thoughts before sleep. When you plant a thought, an intention, an image, a feeling in that twilight state between waking and sleeping, you're planting it in the most fertile soil imaginable. Your subconscious doesn't argue with you. It doesn't say, well, that's not realistic, or you don't deserve that, or that's impossible given your current circumstances. No, it simply takes what you give it and begins working with the raw material you've provided. Now, I want you to understand something crucial here. Many people fail with this technique not because it doesn't work, but because they sabotage themselves without realizing it. They spend 2 minutes visualizing something wonderful, then spend the next 2 hours before sleep worrying about bills, replaying arguments, or rehearsing their fears. Which seed do you think takes root? The one you watered for 2 minutes, or the one you fertilized with emotional intensity for 2 hours? Your subconscious responds most powerfully to what you feel most deeply. This is why simply repeating words mechanically, without feeling, produces minimal results. You must feel the reality of what you're affirming. You must sense it. You must make it vivid in your imagination until it produces an emotional response in your body. Let me give you a practical example. Suppose you're dealing with a difficult financial situation. Every night, you're lying in bed thinking about unpaid bills, about the money you don't have, about the mounting pressure. What are you doing? You're impressing your subconscious mind with images of lack, limitation, and anxiety. And what does your subconscious do with those images? It says, yes, I understand. This is what we're creating. More lack, more limitation, more reasons to worry about money. It doesn't judge. It doesn't argue with you. It simply accepts what you're feeding it and goes to work making it real. You see, your subconscious mind is like the most loyal servant you could ever have. It never questions your orders. It never says, "Are you sure about this?" If you keep telling it through your thoughts and feelings that money is scarce, that you're always broke, that you'll never get ahead, it will move heaven and earth to prove you right. This is why some people seem stuck in a perpetual cycle of financial struggle. It's not because the universe is against them. It's not because they're cursed or unlucky. It's because they've programmed their subconscious mind with beliefs about poverty and lack, and that faithful servant is simply doing its job, manifesting those beliefs into their reality. But here's where it gets exciting. The same principle works in reverse. If your subconscious mind can create poverty when impressed with images of lack, imagine what it can create when impressed with images of abundance, prosperity, and wealth. This is the great secret that the wealthy have understood, whether consciously or unconsciously. They think differently about money. They feel differently about money. And because of that, they experience money differently. I want you to understand something crucial. The money you desire already exists. Right now, as you're listening to these words, there are trillions of dollars circulating in the world economy. Money is flowing everywhere, constantly moving from person to person, from account to account. The money you want is out there right now. The question is not whether the money exists. The question is, are you mentally and emotionally open to receiving it? Have you impressed upon your subconscious mind that you are worthy of wealth? That prosperity is your natural state? That money flows to you easily and constantly? You see, your subconscious mind doesn't argue with you. It doesn't question whether you deserve wealth or not. It simply accepts what you consistently tell it as truth. If you've been programming it with thoughts of lack, limitation, and struggle, then that's exactly what it will manifest in your outer world. But the moment you begin to impress new ideas upon it, ideas of abundance, prosperity, and financial freedom, everything starts to change. Let me share something profound with you. Your subconscious mind is like fertile soil. It doesn't care what kind of seed you plant. Plant thorns, and you'll get thorns. Plant roses, and you'll get roses. It's completely impartial. It will grow whatever you plant with the same care and attention. So the question becomes, what seeds have you been planting? Most people walk around all day planting seeds of poverty without even realizing it. They say things like, "I can't afford that. Money doesn't grow on trees. I'm always broke. Rich people are greedy." Every single one of these statements is a seed going into the subconscious mind. And what does that soil do? It accepts those seeds and begins to grow them into your reality. Now, I want you to understand something critical here. Your current financial situation is not punishment. It's not bad luck. It's not because the economy is terrible or because you didn't have the right opportunities. Your current financial situation is simply the outpicturing of your habitual thinking up until this point. That's all it is. Nothing more, nothing less. And here's the liberating truth in that. If your thinking created your current circumstances, then new thinking can create new circumstances. You are not a victim of your bank account. You are the creator of it. Once you truly grasp this, once you really feel the power of this truth in your bones, everything shifts. I've seen people transform their financial lives completely by changing nothing but their inner conversations. They didn't get a new job. They didn't win the lottery. They didn't inherit money. They simply began to think differently about money, and their outer world rearranged itself to match their new inner conviction. Now, I want to address something that trips up many people on this path. They say, "Yes, I'll think positively about money, but only after I see some results first." Do you see the trap in that thinking? You're putting the cart before the horse. You're saying, "I'll believe it when I see it," but the law works the opposite way. You must believe it before you see it. Your subconscious doesn't respond to your current bank balance. It responds to your habitual thinking. If you wait for external proof before changing your mental attitude, you'll wait forever. The external world is always a reflection of your inner world, not the other way around. You cannot change the reflection without changing what stands before the mirror. This is why affirmations work, but only when done correctly. Don't just repeat words like a parrot. Feel the truth of what you're saying. When you affirm, "Money flows to me easily and abundantly," don't say it while simultaneously thinking, "This is nonsense. I'm broke." That's like stepping on the gas and the brake at the same time. Instead, take a few moments each day, particularly before sleep, and contemplate wealth as already yours. Don't beg, don't plead. Simply accept it as a present reality in your mind. Say to yourself with conviction, I am wealthy. Money circulates freely in my life. I am a magnet for prosperity, and as you say these words, feel the relief, the freedom, the joy that wealth would bring you. Here's what will happen. Your subconscious mind, which cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one, will accept this new impression, and once accepted, it must express itself in your life. It's not magic, it's mental law, as precise as the law of gravity. I've seen people turn their finances around in weeks using this principle, not through feverish action alone, but through a fundamental shift in their relationship with money. They stopped fearing it, stopped resenting it in others, stopped feeling guilty about wanting it. They embraced prosperity as their natural birthright. And here's what surprised them most. The more they internalized this truth, the less they needed to prove anything to anyone. The desperate energy that once drove them, that anxious, grasping quality, began to dissolve. In its place emerged a quiet confidence, a magnetic certainty that opportunities noticed. I've watched this transformation countless times. A salesman who once chased every lead with sweaty palms begins attracting clients effortlessly. A business owner who obsessed over competitors suddenly finds unique advantages appearing in their own offerings. The shift isn't in their external circumstances first, it's in the consciousness they bring to those circumstances. Your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between $1 and $1 million. To that deeper intelligence, numbers are merely symbols. What it responds to is the feeling tone, the conviction, the acceptance of wealth as natural and appropriate for you. When you plant a seed, you don't dig it up every day to check its progress. You trust the intelligence of nature to do its work beneath the surface. The same principle applies to wealth. You impress your desire upon the subconscious through feeling and conviction, then you release it. You don't anxiously monitor every bank statement with fear. You don't question whether it's working. You maintain the feeling of the wish fulfilled, that beautiful, restful sense that what you've claimed in consciousness must, by spiritual law, manifest in form. This is where most people stumble. They do the mental work for a day, perhaps a week, then abandon it when immediate results don't appear. But would you plant a garden and tear it up after 3 days because you don't see tomatoes? The subconscious requires time to rearrange circumstances, to orchestrate the meetings, the ideas, the opportunities that will bring your desire into manifestation. Persistence in belief is not the same as desperate clinging. There's a profound difference between affirming your prosperity from a place of confidence versus repeating affirmations while your stomach churns with doubt. Your subconscious registers the feeling, not the words. If your words say, I am wealthy, while your emotions scream, I'm terrified of poverty, which message do you think takes root? This is why I emphasize the importance of feeling the reality of your desire already fulfilled. When you enter that state, that beautiful, peaceful acceptance that what you want is already yours, your subconscious doesn't resist. There's no internal war. You're not trying to convince yourself. You're simply resting in the knowledge of it. Let me share a story that illustrates this perfectly. Years ago, a woman came to me desperate for a position at a prestigious law firm. She'd been applying for months with no success. I asked her to describe how she felt each time she submitted an application. She admitted she felt sick with anxiety, constantly imagining rejection letters, rehearsing explanations for why she wasn't good enough. I told her to stop applying for 2 weeks. Instead, each night before sleep, she was to imagine sitting at her desk in that firm, feeling the satisfaction of work well done, hearing colleagues greet her by name, sensing the weight of belonging, not hoping for it, not wishing, actually feeling it as present reality. The first few nights her mind rebelled. The moment she tried to feel successful, waves of doubt crashed over her. But I instructed her not to fight these feelings. Simply acknowledge them, then gently return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Like training a puppy to sit patient, persistent, kind. By the second week, something shifted. She found herself naturally smiling during these sessions. The visualization felt less like fantasy and more like memory. She wasn't trying anymore. She was simply being the person who already had what she desired. 3 days after her 2-week pause, an unexpected call. A partner at her dream firm had received her earlier application, set it aside, and suddenly felt compelled to reach out. Within a week, she had the position. Coincidence? I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in consciousness creating reality. And when your consciousness embodies the feeling of your wish fulfilled without contradiction or doubt, the external world rearranges itself to match. You see, most people wait for evidence before they believe. They want the promotion before they feel successful. They want the relationship before they feel love. They want the money in the bank before they feel abundant. And this is why they remain stuck in the same patterns, year after year, wondering why nothing ever changes. But you're different now. You understand that consciousness is cause, not effect. The feeling comes first. The evidence follows. Let me tell you about a woman who came to one of my lectures years ago. She was a school teacher, struggling financially, living paycheck to paycheck. She told me she wanted financial freedom, but every time she tried to imagine it, her mind would immediately flood with images of bills, debts, and her empty bank account. I asked her, "How would you feel if you were already financially free?" She closed her eyes and said, "I would feel peaceful, relieved, like I could breathe for the first time in years." Then that's your work, I told her. Cultivate that feeling, not as something you're trying to get, but as something you already possess. She practiced every night before sleep. She didn't visualize specific amounts of money or imagine scenarios. She simply felt the relief, the peace, the easy breath of someone who is financially secure. She fell asleep in that feeling night after night. 3 months later, she inherited money from a distant relative she barely knew existed. 6 months after that, she was offered a position at a private school that paid nearly double her previous salary. Within a year, her entire financial reality had transformed. Did she make those things happen through effort and strategy? No. She made them happen through consciousness. She became the person who was already free, and her external world had no choice but to conform to that inner state. This is the law, not hope, not wishful thinking. Law. The universe doesn't pause to consider your worthiness. It doesn't weigh your past mistakes or calculate whether you deserve what you're impressing upon it. It simply responds. A seed doesn't justify itself before becoming a tree. Water doesn't ask permission before freezing at 32 degrees. And your subconscious mind doesn't debate the merit of your convictions before manifesting them into form. This is where most people stumble. They approach prayer, affirmation, visualization with a bargaining mentality. Please, if it's meant to be. I hope I'm good enough for this. Maybe, possibly, if circumstances align. Stop. That is not how law operates. Gravity doesn't negotiate. Electricity doesn't compromise. And the law of your own mind doesn't make exceptions based on your self-image or past performance. When I work with someone struggling to manifest their desire, I don't ask about their goal first. I ask about their self-concept. Because that's where the real work happens. You can recite affirmations until your voice goes hoarse, but if underneath those words lies a deep conviction of unworthiness, of impossibility, of limitation, then you're simply echoing noise into a void. Your subconscious accepts what you genuinely believe. Not what you say, not what you hope, what you accept as true in the deepest chambers of your being. I've watched people transform their entire existence by changing one fundamental belief about themselves. Not their circumstances first, themselves. A woman who saw herself as perpetually struggling with money, who had decades of evidence supporting that identity, began to quietly, persistently see herself as someone to whom wealth flows naturally. She didn't wait for a windfall to believe it. She believed it first. The windfall came later, in forms she never anticipated but always matched her new internal conviction. This is the part that requires courage, real courage. Not the courage to face external enemies, but to face the enemy of habitual thought. To stand against the accumulated evidence of years and declare a new truth. The transformation begins in silence, not in the marketplace of opinions, not in the forum of debate, but in the sanctuary of your own consciousness. This is where every great change has its birth. You see, most people wait for change to happen to them. They wait for circumstances to improve. They wait for other people to change. They wait for the right moment, the right opportunity, the right alignment of stars. And while they wait, life passes. Years accumulate, dreams fade into the sepia tones of memory. But transformation doesn't work that way, it never has. I've watched this pattern for decades. A person comes to me and says, "Dr. Murphy, when my circumstances improve, then I'll be happy. When I have more money, then I'll feel abundant. When people treat me better, then I'll feel worthy." And I must tell them, gently but firmly, you have it backwards. Entirely backwards. The external world is not the cause. It is the effect. Always the effect. You must become the thing you seek before you can experience it. This isn't mysticism. This isn't wishful thinking. This is the iron law of consciousness. You cannot harvest what you have not planted. You cannot receive what you are not broadcasting. Think about radio waves. They fill the air around you right now. Thousands of signals passing through this very room, through your body, carrying music, voices, information. But you don't hear them. Why? Because you're not tuned to their frequency. Tune your radio, and suddenly, there it is. The music was always there. The station was always broadcasting. But you couldn't receive it until you aligned yourself with its frequency. Your consciousness works exactly the same way. The abundance, the health, the love, the success you desire, it's all broadcasting right now. It's all available. But you cannot receive it while you're tuned to lack, tuned to fear, tuned to limitation. This is why affirmation without feeling is powerless. This is why saying words you don't believe creates nothing. You're not actually changing your frequency. You're just making noise while remaining tuned to the old station. Your subconscious mind is a perfect recording device. It takes everything you feed it with feeling as an instruction. It doesn't argue. It doesn't question. It simply accepts and creates. When you say, "I am wealthy but feel poor," your subconscious receives the feeling, not the words. The feeling is the real message. The feeling is the vibration that creates your reality. This is why affirmations fail for most people. They're treating their subconscious mind like it understands language the way their conscious mind does. But your subconscious speaks only one language, the language of feeling, of emotion, of vibration. Think of it like programming a computer. If you type commands into a computer that only understands binary code but you're typing in English, nothing happens. The computer isn't being stubborn. It simply cannot process what you're giving it. Your subconscious is the same way. It processes feeling states, not word arrangements. So when you repeat, "I am confident," 1,000 times while feeling insecure, you're programming insecurity 1,000 times. You're reinforcing the very state you're trying to escape. The words are just vehicles. The feeling is the passenger that actually arrives at the destination. Now here's where this gets practical. How do you generate the feeling of something you don't yet have? This is the question that stops most people. They think, how can I feel wealthy when my bank account is empty? How can I feel loved when I'm alone? How can I feel successful when I'm struggling? This is where imagination becomes your greatest power. Your subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. This has been proven in neuroscience labs. When you imagine eating a lemon, your mouth produces saliva. When you imagine running, the same neural pathways activate as actual running. Your brain and body respond to imagined experiences as if they were real. This is the secret that changes everything. You don't have to wait for circumstances to change before you can feel differently. You can generate any feeling you want right now through the disciplined use of your imagination. When you imagine your desire as already fulfilled, when you see it clearly and feel it deeply, your subconscious receives this as reality. It begins immediately to reorganize your world to match this inner experience. This is not theory. This is the practical mechanics of how your mind actually operates. Your subconscious cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a physical one. Scientists have proven this repeatedly. When Olympic athletes visualize their performance, the same neural pathways activate as when they physically execute the movements. The brain fires the same way. The body responds the same way. You are not pretending when you imagine your desire fulfilled. You are not engaging in fantasy or wishful thinking. You are doing something far more powerful. You are programming your subconscious mind with precision. You are creating the mental equivalent of your desire, and this mental equivalent must manifest in your external world. It is law. It is principle. It cannot fail. Let me tell you about a businessman I once counseled who grasped this truth completely. He was drowning in debt, creditors calling daily, his business on the verge of collapse. Everything in his physical world screamed failure and limitation. but he understood the power of feeling. Each night before sleep, he would sit quietly and imagine himself reviewing bank statements showing substantial balances. He would feel the relief, the security, the confidence of financial abundance. He would imagine signing checks without anxiety, making business decisions from a position of strength rather than desperation. His circumstances did not change overnight, but something shifted within him immediately. He began to think differently, to see opportunities he had missed before. Within weeks, an unexpected contract came through. A debt was forgiven due to a technicality. A new partnership formed that transformed his business model. Within 6 months, his entire financial reality had reorganized itself to match the feeling state he had been cultivating nightly. Did his imagination create these specific opportunities? No. His imagination created the consciousness that attracted and recognized these opportunities. His feeling of abundance opened his awareness to solutions that had been invisible to his previous consciousness of lack. This is the great paradox that confuses so many seekers of truth. They believe that imagination is the reward that comes after success, when in reality, imagination is the power that creates the success. They have the sequence reversed. They think, when I have money, then I will feel abundant. When I meet my soulmate, then I will feel loved. When I achieve recognition, then I will feel worthy. But the universe doesn't work backward, it works from the inside out. You must first embody the consciousness of what you desire. You must wear it like a garment in your imagination. You must think from the end, not toward it. This distinction is everything. When you think toward your goal, you perpetuate the consciousness of separation from it. You affirm that it is out there, distant, apart from you. But when you think from the end, you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You live mentally in the state of already being what you desire to be. Let me share with you the story of a woman who understood this principle with remarkable clarity. She came to one of my lectures years ago, struggling with chronic financial difficulty. She worked long hours, worried constantly about bills, and felt trapped in a cycle of never having enough. During our conversation, she asked me the question so many ask, "Dr. Murphy, what specific technique should I use to attract money?" I told her what I'm telling you now. The technique matters less than the state of consciousness from which you operate. I suggested something simple. Every night before sleep, she should imagine checking her bank statement and feeling deep satisfaction at seeing an abundant balance. Not to visualize specific numbers, but to capture the feeling, the relief, the freedom, the security of knowing she had more than enough. She did this faithfully. But here's what she reported to me 6 months later that revealed the true power at work. She said, "Dr. Murphy, the strangest thing happened. Before anything changed externally, I noticed I stopped worrying about money. I began making different decisions. I turned down overtime work that exhausted me and instead took an evening course I'd always wanted to take. And from that course, I met someone who introduced me to a business opportunity that has completely transformed my financial life." The problem was never the overtime itself, it was that I was operating from a consciousness of lack. I was saying yes from fear, not from wisdom. And the universe can only respond to the consciousness you hold, not to the actions you take. This is what most people misunderstand about manifestation. They think it's about forcing, about grinding, about saying yes to everything that comes their way out of desperation. But desperation is a state of consciousness that attracts more situations that make you desperate. When you're making decisions from exhaustion, from fear, from a belief that this is my only chance, you're actually blocking the very abundance you're trying to attract. I learned something profound during this period. The right opportunities don't drain you, they energize you. When you're aligned with your true purpose, when you're operating from a consciousness of abundance, the work doesn't feel like sacrifice. It feels like expansion. That evening course I took, I felt more alive in those 3 hours once a week than I did in 40 hours at my regular job. That was my subconscious telling me I was moving in the right direction. And here's what's fascinating. The moment I started honoring that inner guidance, everything shifted, not just externally, but internally. I stopped feeling like a victim of my circumstances. I started feeling like a creator of my reality. The business opportunity that came from that course, I would have dismissed it a year earlier. I would have said, "I don't have time for that," or "I'm not qualified," or "that's too risky." But because I had been doing the inner work, Reprogramming my subconscious mind, I recognized it as the answer to my prayers. I said yes from a place of faith, not fear. And that makes all the difference. Within 6 months, that opportunity had replaced my income from all that overtime I used to work. Within a year, it had doubled it. But more importantly, I had my evenings back. I had my peace of mind back. I had myself back. And it all started with understanding one principle. Your subconscious mind is not your enemy. It's not something you need to fight or override. It's your most powerful ally, but only when you learn to work with it properly. Now, let me show you exactly how to work with it properly, because here's what most people get wrong. They try to program their subconscious mind the same way they type commands into a computer. They say an affirmation once or twice, wonder why nothing changes, and give up. But your subconscious doesn't respond to commands. It responds to feelings, to repetition, to the emotional tone behind your words. Think about the last time you worried about something. Did you worry about it once and move on? Of course not. You replayed it over and over. You imagined worst-case scenarios. You felt the anxiety in your body and your subconscious. It took all of that as instruction. It said, oh, this must be important. This must be what we're focused on. And it went to work making that anxiety your reality. Now imagine if you brought that same intensity, that same repetition, that same emotional commitment to what you actually want. That's when everything changes. The technique I'm about to share with you is simple, but don't mistake simple for easy. This requires discipline. It requires you to guard your mind the way a gardener guards their garden from weeds. But the results? They speak for themselves. Before sleep, when your conscious mind is tired and your subconscious is most receptive, you're going to do something specific. You're going to enter into a drowsy, sleepy state. Not fully asleep, but right on that edge. Your body relaxed, your mind quiet, and in that state, you're going to impress upon your subconscious mind a clear, simple statement of what you want. Not what you're trying to get. Not what you hope might happen. What you accept as already being true. If you want health, you don't say, I want to be healthy, or I'm trying to get better. You say with feeling, I am healthy. Every cell in my body radiates perfect health. And you feel what it would be like if that were already true. Because here's what most people don't understand. Your subconscious mind doesn't argue. It doesn't debate. It doesn't fact check. It accepts whatever you consistently impress upon it. If you keep saying, I'm broke, it says, okay, and finds ways to keep you broke. If you keep saying, I'm blessed, it says, okay, and finds ways to bless you. Think about worry for a moment. What is worry but negative prayer? When you worry, you're vividly imagining exactly what you don't want to happen. You're feeling the fear, seeing the disaster, rehearsing the nightmare, and your subconscious says, oh, you want me to create this? You're giving this so much emotional energy, it must be important to you. And it goes to work making your worry a reality. I've watched people worry themselves sick, literally. A man worries about getting fired, and the anxiety makes him perform poorly, and he gets fired. A woman worries about her husband leaving, and the constant suspicion and neediness push him away. They think they're being realistic or prepared, but they're actually using the same creative power that could heal them to harm themselves instead. So if worry is negative prayer, then what's positive prayer? It's not begging. It's not pleading with some distant deity to maybe, if you're lucky, grant your wish. Real prayer is the feeling of the wish fulfilled. It's entering into the state of consciousness where you already have what you desire, not hoping for it, not waiting for it, experiencing it now in your imagination with feeling. I'll give you a concrete example. A young woman came to me desperate for marriage. She'd been trying for years, going on endless dates, feeling more and more desperate with each passing month. I told her to stop trying, stop searching. Instead, every night before sleep, imagine you're already married to your ideal husband. Feel the ring on your finger, see his face, feel his presence beside you, hear him say, I love you. Make it real in your imagination. Stay with that feeling. Let it fill your entire being. This is not make-believe. This is creation itself taking place in the workshop of your mind. Your imagination is not separate from reality. It is the very fabric from which your reality is woven. Every great invention, Every masterpiece, every human achievement began as an image in someone's mind. The Wright brothers saw themselves flying before they ever left the ground. Edison saw the light bulb illuminating the world long before his first successful filament. They imagined persistently until the invisible became visible. Now here is where most people stumble. They imagine once, maybe twice, and then abandon the practice because nothing changes immediately. But tell me, does the farmer plant a seed and then dig it up the next day to see if it's growing? Does he stand over the field with his arms crossed, tapping his foot impatiently, demanding immediate results? Of course not. He waters the seed. He tends the soil. He has faith in the invisible process happening beneath the surface. And in due season, the harvest appears. Not by his anxious worry, not by his desperate pleading, but by the natural law that governs all growth. Your subconscious mind operates on this same principle. When you plant an image there with feeling, with conviction, with repetition, it must come to pass. It has no choice. This is law, as reliable as the law of gravity, but you must be consistent. You must return to your mental image daily, preferably twice a day. Morning and night are the most powerful times because your mind is in a more receptive state. In those moments between sleep and waking, the critical, doubting conscious mind steps aside, and the subconscious becomes highly impressionable. This is why prayer and meditation have been practiced at dawn and dusk for thousands of years across every culture. The ancients understood what modern science is only now beginning to confirm. There are windows of consciousness when the veil between your desires and their manifestation grows thin. When you visualize in these sacred moments, you're not just daydreaming. You're imprinting instructions directly onto the most powerful creative force in the universe, your subconscious mind, and your subconscious doesn't distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. To your deeper mind, if you can see it, feel it, and believe it, it already exists. I knew a musician who came to me broken and defeated. He lost the use of 3 fingers in an accident. The doctors told him his career was over. But I taught him this principle, and every morning and night, he would sit quietly and imagine himself playing again, not struggling, not compensating, playing beautifully, effortlessly, as he once had. He felt the strings beneath his fingertips. He heard the music flowing through him. He saw audiences move to tears. His conscious mind screamed that this was impossible. The medical evidence was clear. But he persisted in his mental rehearsal with absolute faith. Within months, against all medical prediction, he began to regain function. Within a year, he was performing again. The doctors called it miraculous. I call it the natural response of a subconscious mind that was given clear, emotionally charged instructions and accepted them as truth. Your subconscious is impersonal. It doesn't care whether your mental images are of success or failure, health or sickness, abundance or poverty. It simply accepts what you repeatedly impress upon it and sets about making it real in your outer world. This is why consistency matters so profoundly. One visualization session won't transform your life any more than one meal will transform your body. You must train your subconscious mind through repetition, just as you would train a muscle through consistent exercise. Every morning and every night, you are either programming your subconscious with empowering beliefs or reinforcing limiting ones. There is no neutral ground. Your mind is always accepting suggestions, always recording, always creating. This is why the moments just before sleep are so extraordinarily powerful. As you drift into that drowsy state between waking and sleeping, your conscious mind releases its grip. The critical faculty that judges and analyzes begins to fade. The gateway to your subconscious swings wide open. In this twilight state, suggestions bypass your rational defenses and sink directly into the fertile soil of your deeper mind. Imagine planting seeds in a garden. You wouldn't plant them once and expect an immediate harvest. You would water them daily, protect them from weeds, give them sunlight and attention. Your mental seeds require the same devoted care. Each night as you lie in bed, see yourself living the life you desire. Feel the emotions of your wish fulfilled. Hear the congratulations, touch the evidence of your success, smell the victory. Make it vivid, make it real, make it repetitive. Your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. This is not theory, this is demonstrable fact. When you imagine biting into a lemon, your mouth waters. When you imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, your body responds with fear. Your subconscious accepts the imagined scene as reality and produces corresponding physical and emotional responses. Now harness this principle deliberately. If your subconscious accepts imagination as reality, then imagine the reality you want. Don't imagine your fears. Don't rehearse failure. Don't give emotional energy to worst-case scenarios. Instead, become the architect of your inner world. Build the mansion of your desires in your imagination first, and your subconscious will construct the blueprint for manifesting it in your outer world. Many people sabotage themselves here. They visualize their goal once or twice, then spend the remaining 23 hours doubting, worrying, and contradicting their own desires. This is like planting a seed, then digging it up repeatedly to see if it's growing. You must leave it alone. You must trust the process. You must persist in your mental diet with the same commitment you bring to your physical one. You see, most people make the fatal error of treating their mental work like a light switch. They turn it on when they remember, turn it off when they doubt, flip it back on when they're desperate. This is not how consciousness operates. This is not how the subconscious mind responds to your direction. Your subconscious mind is like rich, fertile soil. When you plant a seed, a clear mental image of your desire, you must leave it in the ground. You don't dig it up every few hours to check if it's growing. You don't flood it with water one day and leave it parched the next. You maintain consistent conditions. You water it regularly. You ensure it receives sunlight. You trust the natural process of growth that has governed all of life since the beginning of time. When you constantly check your bank account, you're digging up the seed. When you obsessively scroll through job postings while affirming abundance, you're mixing weeds with your desired harvest. When you declare, "I am confident," while your body language screams insecurity, you're creating a confused garden where nothing can properly take root. I want you to understand something fundamental about the nature of mental work. It is work, real work. Not in the exhausting, effortful sense, but in the consistent, committed sense. The same way you wouldn't expect physical fitness from one workout, you cannot expect mental transformation from one visualization session. But here's the beautiful part that so many miss. Unlike physical training, which requires hours in the gym, mental training happens in moments, brief moments, repeated moments. Throughout your day, you have hundreds of opportunities to reinforce your new self-concept while waiting in line, while driving, while falling asleep. These are not wasted moments. They are your most powerful moments if you know how to use them, because your subconscious doesn't argue. It doesn't debate. When you're tired, when you're drowsy, when you're relaxed, your critical mind steps aside. And in that moment, your subconscious stands wide open like a door left unlocked. I learned this not from books, but from watching people transform their lives by doing something ridiculously simple. They stopped fighting. They stopped trying to force change during their most alert hours. Instead, they whispered to themselves in the twilight moments, and everything shifted. Let me tell you about a woman who came to one of my lectures years ago. She'd been battling insomnia for months. Anxiety kept her awake, spinning thoughts like a broken record. I told her, "Stop fighting the sleeplessness, use it." Every night, as she lay there in the dark, instead of wrestling with worry, she began to repeat gently, "I sleep in peace. My body knows how to rest. I wake refreshed and whole." Within a week, she was sleeping through the night. Why? Because the suggestion met no resistance. Her exhausted mind couldn't argue back. The subconscious received the command and simply obeyed. This is the secret behind bedtime programming. You are literally installing new software into your mind when your defenses are down. The alpha state, that drowsy, hypnagogic threshold between waking and sleeping, is when your subconscious is most receptive, most suggestible, most ready to accept new instructions. And here's what most people miss. It works both ways. If you fall asleep rehearsing your problems, replaying your failures, reciting your fears, you're programming yourself for more of the same. You're giving your subconscious a blueprint for tomorrow's suffering. Your last thought before sleep is the seed you plant in your inner garden. Choose it wisely. Make it something you actually want to harvest. The same principle applies while driving, while showering, while doing any automatic activity. Your conscious mind occupies itself with the task, and your subconscious floats just beneath the surface, listening, absorbing, recording. which means if you're filling that time with complaints, you're programming limitation. If you're filling it with worry, you're programming fear. If you're filling it with gratitude and possibility, you're programming abundance. Let me give you a specific example. There was a woman who came to one of my lectures years ago. She had been stuck in the same financial situation for years, not struggling, but not thriving either. Always just enough, never more. She asked me what she was doing wrong. She was affirming every day, she said. She was visualizing. She was doing everything right. So I asked her to describe her typical morning. She told me about her affirmations, her prayers, her intentions. Then I asked her, "What do you think about during your commute?" She paused. "Well, I suppose I think about my bills, about how expensive everything is, about how my salary hasn't increased, about how my friends seem to have more than I do." There was her answer. 40 minutes every morning, twice a day, programming lack. Her 15 minutes of affirmations couldn't compete with 80 minutes of financial worry. The subconscious doesn't care which voice is louder, it cares which voice is more consistent. And her worry was winning by sheer repetition. I told her to turn her commute into a prayer, not a begging prayer, but a grateful one. To spend that time thanking her subconscious for the abundance that was already on its way. To imagine her bank account growing. To feel what financial freedom would feel like. To bless the other drivers around her. To send them thoughts of prosperity too, knowing that there's no competition in infinite mind. She didn't believe me at first. It seemed too simple. But she tried it anyway because she had nothing to lose. Within 3 months, she received a promotion she hadn't even applied for. Within 6 months, an unexpected inheritance came through from a distant relative. Within a year, her income had doubled. But here's what most people miss about this journey. They think the external changes are the real miracle. They celebrate the new job, the unexpected money, the improved circumstances. And yes, those things are wonderful. But the true transformation was internal. The woman I just described told me something profound 6 months into her practice. She said, "Dr. Murphy, the strangest thing has happened. I don't need the money the way I used to. I mean, I still want it, I still enjoy it. But there's no desperation anymore, no fear. The money is coming, yes, but I've already found the peace I thought money would bring me." Do you see what happened? She didn't just change her bank account. She changed her consciousness. And that's where the real power lies. Your subconscious mind doesn't care about your bank balance. It cares about your mental equivalent. It cares about the image you hold of yourself, the feeling you generate, the belief you maintain. When you change these internal realities, external reality has no choice but to follow. This is why affirmations without feeling are worthless. This is why visualization without belief is empty. This is why positive thinking without conviction is just noise. You're not trying to fool the universe. You're not trying to trick some cosmic force. You're impressing your subconscious mind with a new pattern, a new truth, a new reality. Think of it this way. Your subconscious is like a garden. For years, maybe decades, you've been planting seeds of limitation. Money is hard to get. I'm not lucky with finances. Rich people are greedy. There's never enough. These seeds have grown into mighty trees with deep roots. They've created a forest of lack in your inner world. Now you're trying to plant new seeds. Seeds of abundance, prosperity, wealth. But if you just scatter them on the surface while those old trees still dominate the landscape, blocking out the sun, drinking up all the water, what chance do your new seeds have? You must uproot the old before the new can truly flourish. This doesn't mean years of therapy or endless analysis of your childhood. It means consciously, deliberately, persistently replacing old thoughts with new ones. Every single time the old pattern emerges, you recognize it, you refuse it, and you replace it. Your subconscious doesn't care how long you've believed something. It only cares about what you're impressing upon it now. This present moment, this present thought, this present feeling. I've seen people who carried limiting beliefs for 40, 50, 60 years transform themselves completely in a matter of weeks once they truly grasped this principle and applied it with conviction. Not because the universe suddenly favored them, not because they got lucky, but because they stopped feeding the old pattern and started nourishing a new one. Think of it like this. You have a garden. For years you've been watering weeds. You didn't mean to. You didn't wake up and say, "Today I'm going to water my weeds," but every time you repeated, "I'm not good enough. Nothing works for me. I always fail." You were watering those weeds. You were giving them sunlight, attention, emotional energy. Now, you decide to plant flowers, beautiful, vibrant flowers that represent your true desires. But here's what most people do. They plant the seeds, water them once, and then the next day they go right back to watering the weeds. They affirm abundance in the morning and then spend the rest of the day complaining about their bills. They visualize health and then constantly talk about their symptoms. You cannot cultivate two opposite gardens simultaneously. You must make a choice. And that choice must be renewed every single day, multiple times a day, until the new garden is so established that the old weeds can't even take root anymore. This is what I mean by mental discipline, not rigid control, not exhausting vigilance, but a gentle, persistent, consistent return to the truth you want to establish. When the old thought comes, and it will come, you don't fight it. Fighting gives it power. You simply observe it, recognize it for what it is, an old recording, nothing more, and then you deliberately, calmly turn your attention to your new truth. That's the old belief. This is what I now choose to accept as true. And you repeat your new assumption. You feel it. You wear it like a familiar coat. You live from it, even if only in your imagination at first. And here's what happens next, something most people completely miss. When you live from the wish fulfilled, when you dwell in that state mentally and emotionally, your subconscious mind doesn't know you're imagining. It accepts it as fact. It begins rearranging the circumstances of your outer world to match the inner conviction you're holding. You don't have to figure out times how asterisk. That's not your job. Your job is to remain faithful to the state. Your job is to return to it, again and again, until it feels more real than your current circumstances. Let me tell you about a woman who attended one of my lectures years ago. She was unmarried, in her late 30s, and convinced her time had passed. She'd been praying for a husband for years, begging, pleading, asking God to send her someone. Nothing happened. Then I taught her this principle. I said, stop asking, stop begging. Assume you are already a happily married woman. Feel the ring on your finger. Hear yourself being called Mrs. Sleep as though your husband is beside you. She resisted at first. It felt dishonest. But I explained, it's not dishonest to claim what is yours in consciousness. It's the only honest thing you can do. So she began. Every night before sleep, she would feel the weight of a wedding ring. She'd imagine turning to kiss her husband goodnight. She'd feel the warmth, the security, the love. Within 4 months, she met a man at a work event. Within a year, they were married. She didn't chase. She didn't force. She didn't manipulate. She simply held the state, and her outer world reflected it back to her. This is how creation works. Not through effort, not through struggle, but through assumption. You assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and the subconscious mind, faithful servant that it is, brings it to pass. Now I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, but Joseph, I've tried visualizing, I've tried imagining, it didn't work. And I'll tell you why. You imagined once or twice, then spent the rest of your day contradicting it. You assumed the state for 5 minutes, then returned to worry, doubt, and fear for 5 hours. You must be times consistent asterisk. You see, the law is impersonal. It doesn't reward you for trying harder. It doesn't care about your sincerity or your desperation. It responds only to the state you occupy most dominantly. If you spend 5 minutes in the wish fulfilled and 5 hours in doubt, doubt is your dominant state, and doubt will materialize. This is why I've always said, it is not the occasional thought that matters, but the times, habitual dwelling times of your mind. What are you returning to throughout the day? When your attention is free, where does it go? If it goes to worry, to lack, to fear, that is your creative state, and you cannot escape the harvest of that seed. The principle is absolute. You cannot bargain with it. You cannot say, but I tried, I really tried. The universe doesn't hear your efforts. It hears only your assumptions. What are you assuming to be true about yourself and your world? That assumption, maintained, becomes your experience. So let me be very clear with you now. If you want results, you must practice times fidelity times to your imaginal act. This means loyalty. This means you do not waver. This means that when the old thoughts arise, and they will, you gently but firmly redirect your attention back to the state you have chosen. You catch yourself worrying about money and you pause. You stop. You remember, no, I have already assumed the feeling of financial freedom. That is my reality now. This worry is just an old pattern, an echo of the former state. It has no power unless I give it power. And you return. Again and again you return. Not with force, not with struggle, but with calm, persistent assumption. You are not fighting the old state. You are simply no longer feeding it. You are withdrawing your attention from it and placing it where you want it to be. Think of it like this. Your attention is the sun. Whatever you shine it upon will grow. Shine it on lack, and lack expands. Shine it on abundance, and abundance expands. You are always creating. The question is, what are you creating? This is the essence of living in the end. You are not waiting for conditions to change. You are not looking for signs. You are not hoping it works. You are times living from times the assumption that it is already done, and that assumption, persisted in, must harden into fact. Now, let me address something that often confuses people: the difference between assuming times wishfully times and assuming times faithfully asterisk. Wishful assumption is thin, it is fragile. It says, I hope this works. I really, really want this to be true. It is laced with doubt, with fear, with constant checking to see if the thing has arrived yet. It is not assumption at all, it is anxiety dressed up in positive language. Faithful assumption is solid. It is unshakable. It doesn't hope at times knows asterisk. It doesn't check the mail every 5 minutes to see if the check has arrived. It goes about its day with calm certainty, because the inner knowing is so complete that the outer confirmation becomes irrelevant. When you assume faithfully, you stop asking times when asterisk. You stop asking times how asterisk. You stop rehearsing backup plans in case it doesn't work out. You simply live as though it is already accomplished, and you do so naturally, effortlessly, without strain. Let me give you a powerful analogy. Think of a seed planted in the ground. Once that seed is in the soil, do you dig it up every day to see if it's growing? Do you stand over it, wringing your hands, begging it to sprout? Of course not. You water it, you give it sunlight, and you times trust times the process. You assume growth is happening beneath the surface even though you cannot yet see it. Your assumption works the same way. Once you have planted it deeply in your subconscious mind, once you have felt it as real, you do not need to keep digging it up to check on it. You do not need to keep affirming it desperately, as though trying to convince yourself. You simply water it with faith, give it the sunlight of your attention, and times trust times that it is taking root. The doubter digs up the seed every day, and then he wonders why nothing grows. The believer plants once, deeply, and walks away in confidence. Which one are you? If you have been digging up your desire, replanting it, second-guessing it, questioning whether you did it right, stop right now. That energy is killing your manifestation. You must learn to plant and trust. There was a man in my audience once who told me he'd been affirming for abundance for 6 months. When I asked him what he did after his affirmations, he said, I check my bank account 12 times a day, and every time it's the same, I feel worse. I said, my friend, you're not affirming abundance, you're affirming lack 12 times a day. He looked stunned, but it was true. His feeling was one of desperation, of checking to see if the universe had done its job yet. That's not faith. That's anxiety masquerading as manifestation. Real faith feels like calm certainty. It feels like peace. It feels like you've already received the answer even though you haven't seen it yet. Think of it like this. When you mail a letter, you don't stand by the mailbox wondering if the postal service will do its job. You drop it in, and you walk away with confidence that it will reach its destination. That's the feeling you want. You've planted your desire in the subconscious mind. Now you must walk away with that same calm assurance. I want to address something else that trips people up, the idea of letting go. Some teachers tell you to forget about your desire completely. That's not quite right either. You don't forget, you release the anxious grip. There's a difference between holding a bird gently in your open palm and crushing it in your closed fist. The desire remains, but the desperate stranglehold is gone. You still water the seed with positive feeling when you think of it, but you're not digging it up every hour to see if it's sprouted. You trust the process because you understand the law. This subconscious mind of yours is far more powerful than your conscious worrying. It knows how to bring your desire to pass. It knows connections you don't know. It sees paths you cannot see. Your job is simply to impress it with the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and then allow it to work. I've watched this happen thousands of times. The people who succeed are always the ones who plant with feeling and then go about their lives with quiet confidence. Now let me share something with you that I've learned from years of counseling people who struggle with this practice. The biggest obstacle to manifestation isn't doubt, it's impatience disguised as effort. People come to me and say, "Dr. Murphy, I've been visualizing for 3 whole days and nothing has happened." 3 days. As if the universe operates on their schedule. As if lifetimes of accumulated negative thinking can be reversed in 72 hours. Listen carefully. Your subconscious mind is always working. It never stops. But it works at its own pace, in its own way, according to laws that transcend your conscious understanding of time. When you plant a seed in your garden, you don't dig it up every morning to check if it's growing. You water it, you give it sunlight, and you trust the process. The same principle applies here. Once you've impressed your subconscious with your desire, once you've felt the reality of your wish fulfilled, your work is done. Now you must let it germinate. You must allow the invisible forces to arrange circumstances, move people, create opportunities. I remember a woman who wanted to heal a relationship with her estranged daughter. For months she had been trying everything: letters, phone calls, intermediaries. Nothing worked. The harder she pushed, the more resistance she encountered. When she came to me, I told her to stop all external effort. Instead, I had her spend 10 minutes each night feeling the joy of reconciliation, not imagining the conversation, not planning what she would say, just feeling the warmth, the love, the peace of having her daughter back in her life. She practiced this for 3 weeks without any outward action. Then one afternoon, completely unexpectedly, her daughter called. No explanation, no drama. Just, "Mom, I'd like to see you." The woman was astonished. But I wasn't. This is how it works when you stop interfering with the process. The moment you step aside, the moment you let the law work without you managing every detail, results appear that astound the rational mind. And this isn't magic, it's order. It's the natural unfolding of what you've accepted as true. Now here's where people get confused. They think that because I teach letting go, I'm teaching passivity. They think I'm saying sit on your couch and wait for life to deliver your desires on a silver platter. That's not what I'm saying at all. There's a difference between effort and struggle. There's a difference between action and interference. When you're aligned with your desire, when you've truly accepted it in consciousness, action becomes effortless. It doesn't feel like work. It feels like the next natural step. You're not pushing, you're not forcing, you're responding to inner guidance that flows from your conviction. But when you're in struggle, when you're anxious and desperate, every action feels heavy. You're trying to make something happen instead of allowing it to happen through you. I knew a salesman once who couldn't close a deal to save his life. He was working harder than anyone in his office, making more calls, attending more meetings, preparing more presentations. But the harder he worked, the worse his results became. Why? Because underneath all that effort was fear, desperation, a belief that he wasn't good enough, that he had to force people to buy from him. And prospects could feel that energy. They could sense his neediness, and it repelled them. I told him, stop trying to sell, start knowing that your product serves people, that the right clients are drawn to you, that success is your natural state. He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. If I stop trying, I'll fail completely, he said. But I convinced him to try it for just 1 week. To go into every meeting with the inner conviction that he was already successful, that this prospect was already served by what he offered or someone better suited was coming. The shift was immediate. His first meeting that week, he closed the biggest deal of his career. Not because he tried harder, because he stopped interfering with his own success. This is what most people get wrong about the subconscious mind. They think it's something they need to control, manipulate, or force into submission. But the subconscious doesn't respond to force, it responds to acceptance. You can't bully your subconscious into giving you what you want. You can't threaten it, cajole it, or beg it for results. The moment you try to force it, you create resistance, and resistance is just another form of doubt dressed up as determination. The subconscious mind works on one simple principle. It accepts what you genuinely feel to be true, not what you hope is true, not what you wish were true. What you actually accept is true in the depths of your being. This is why affirmations fail for so many people. They stand in front of a mirror and repeat, "I am wealthy, I am confident, I am successful," while every cell in their body screams the opposite. The words are positive, but the feeling is one of desperation and lack. And the subconscious doesn't listen to your words. It listens to your feeling. I've seen people spend years affirming prosperity while internally they're terrified of checking their bank balance. They're declaring abundance while simultaneously planning for scarcity. They're claiming confidence while their body language whispers defeat. The subconscious accepts the dominant emotion, not the spoken declaration. So what's the solution? How do you actually impress your subconscious with a new belief when your current circumstances seem to contradict it? You do it the same way you fall asleep. When you want to sleep, you don't lie in bed commanding yourself to sleep. You don't shout at your body to shut down. You don't spend hours analyzing why you're not asleep yet. You simply relax. You let go. You assume the feeling of rest, and sleep comes naturally. Impressing the subconscious works exactly the same way. You assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You relax into it. You let yourself feel, for just a moment, what it would be like if your desire were already accomplished. Not someday, not eventually. Now. What would it feel like to have that financial freedom right now? Not the external trappings, not the things you'd buy, but the internal feeling, the relief, the security, the quiet confidence that you have enough. What would it feel like to have that relationship right now? The companionship, the warmth, the sense of being chosen and valued. What would it feel like to have that health right now? The vitality, the ease of movement, the trust in your body. This feeling, this assumption is the secret. You see, most people wait for the evidence before they feel. They wait to see the number on the scale before they feel thin. They wait for the doctor's report before they feel healthy. They wait for someone to show them love before they feel loved. But that is working backward. That is trying to create from the outside in. The truth is this: you must feel it first. You must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled before the outer world can rearrange itself to match it. This is not positive thinking. This is not pretending. This is entering into the state of consciousness that corresponds to your desire and living from that state until it hardens into fact. Let me give you an example from my own experience. Years ago, I wanted to move to a larger home, but my outer circumstances said it was impossible. The money wasn't there. The opportunities seemed closed. But instead of focusing on the lack, I began to assume the feeling of already living in that spacious home. Every night before sleep, I would imagine myself walking through the rooms. I felt the texture of the walls. I saw the sunlight streaming through the windows. I heard my footsteps on the floors. I didn't beg. I didn't plead. I simply inhabited the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And within weeks, circumstances shifted in ways I could never have predicted. An unexpected opportunity arose. Money came from a source I hadn't anticipated. The home became mine, not through struggle, but through the natural unfoldment of my assumed state. This is the law. This is how your subconscious mind works. It accepts the feeling you give it and proceeds to externalize that feeling as your experience. So when you desire something, ask yourself, how would I feel if this were already true? What would be my inner conversation? What would be the quality of my thoughts? Then deliberately cultivate that feeling. Live in that assumption, walk in that state of consciousness, and refuse to accept any evidence to the contrary as final. Your current circumstances are nothing more than the shadow of your past thinking. They have no power except the power you give them by continuing to react to them. The moment you change your inner assumptions, you plant new seeds in the subconscious. And those seeds must, by law, sprout and bear fruit in your outer world. You don't need to analyze why your old patterns existed. You don't need to dig through your past or understand the psychological origins of every fear. That's not how the subconscious works. The subconscious doesn't care about explanations. It only responds to the impressions you give it now, in this present moment. If you plant a seed of an apple tree, you don't need to understand the entire history of apple cultivation. You don't need to know every botanical detail. You simply plant the seed, water it, and trust the intelligence of nature to do the rest. Your subconscious operates on the same principle. Impress it with the feeling of your wish fulfilled, and it will find ways to manifest it that your conscious mind could never orchestrate. I've seen people spend years in therapy trying to understand why they feel unworthy, why they sabotage relationships, why they can't seem to earn more money. And understanding can be valuable, yes. But understanding alone changes nothing. You can understand every reason why you developed a poverty consciousness, trace it back to childhood experiences, identify every limiting belief, and still remain poor. Because intellectual understanding doesn't impress the subconscious. What impresses the subconscious is feeling. It's the emotional conviction behind your mental images. It's the state you assume is true, regardless of what your reasoning mind says about it. This is why I tell you to live in the end. Don't live in the process of becoming. Don't think about how you'll get from here to there. The how is none of your business. Your job is simply to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and persist in that assumption until it hardens into fact. When you live in the end, you're not hoping, wishing, or waiting. You're not trying to make something happen. You're simply being the person who already has what you desire. And from that state of being, your actions, words, and decisions naturally align with the reality you're claiming. This is why affirmations alone don't work for most people. They repeat words without embodying the feeling. They say, "I am wealthy," while emotionally identifying with lack. That's not affirmation, that's contradiction. Your subconscious doesn't respond to words. It responds to the feeling state behind the words. When you affirm something, you must feel it as true now, not as a future possibility, not as something you hope will happen, but as a present reality. This requires imagination, yes, but it also requires you to withdraw your attention from contradictory evidence. The world will show you plenty of reasons to doubt. Your bank account, your current circumstances, the opinions of others, all of these will seem to contradict your inner claim. But remember, the outer world is always reflecting a past state of consciousness. What you see today was set in motion by who you were weeks or months ago. If you react to present circumstances as if they define your reality, you perpetuate them. You lock yourself into the same loop. But if you remain faithful to your new state of consciousness, if you persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled regardless of what your senses report, you break the pattern. You introduce a new causative factor into your life. This is not stubbornness. This is not denial. This is understanding the law. Consciousness is cause. Your sustained feeling state creates your world. When you finally grasp this, you stop fighting circumstances and start managing your inner state. You become the gardener of your own mind, pulling out thoughts that don't serve your vision and watering those that do. I want you to understand something profound. Your imagination is not less real than the physical world. In fact, it's more real because it's the source from which the physical emerges. What you imagine consistently, what you feel deeply, what you assume to be true, this becomes the blueprint that the subconscious uses to structure your experience. So tonight, before you sleep, don't just think about what you want. Feel yourself into the reality of having it. Construct a simple scene that implies your desire is fulfilled. See it. Feel it. Hear the sounds associated with it. Let yourself experience the satisfaction of already being the person who has this. And don't rush through this. The subconscious mind doesn't respond to hurried, anxious visualization. It responds to feeling. It responds to conviction. It responds to the calm assurance that what you're claiming is already established in the invisible realm of mind. This is why so many people fail with visualization. They picture what they want for 30 seconds, feel nothing, and then spend the rest of their day contradicting it with worry, doubt, and negative conversation. That's not impressing the subconscious. That's confusing it. You must be consistent, you must be persistent, and you must feel the reality of your desire as you visualize it. Now here's something else I want you to understand about prayer and visualization. They work best when combined with what I call the thank you technique. Before you go to sleep at night, simply say thank you for the thing you desire as though you've already received it. Don't beg, don't plead, don't ask with desperation. Simply say, thank you for my perfect health. Thank you for my financial abundance. Thank you for my harmonious relationship. This attitude of gratitude aligns you with the feeling of already having. And when you feel that you already have something, your subconscious accepts it as true and begins to make it manifest in your outer world. I've seen people